until, all right, until our chair arrives, I guess I will call the meeting to order at 4:34. And so we have quorum with just 3 of us out of 5. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 11th?
So moved.
I guess we only have. All right. Any discussion? All right. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I don't think we have anyone else to say no. All right, so that passes the approval of the minutes. Did we have any public comments? Okay, and so then we will head on to number 5, which is the Area Extension Director report.
Okay, thank you. You're doing really well. I don't really have a lot to add this month. We've been working as a team. We've got a full staff finally, so we're working as a team to figure out staff meetings and county needs and 4-H, visiting the 4-H community and getting Zach all up to speed. We do have an all area meeting tomorrow, so there won't be any staff in the office tomorrow, but we're really excited to pull our entire area together tomorrow for the first time since I've been here. So we're doing that over in Eau Claire. So it's a little bit of a, and actually our leadership team from Madison and around will also be joining us. So I'm excited for that as well. Do you have any questions in terms of the operations of Extension or things that we've been working on? Usually count on you for one. Oh, no, I didn't ask about that, so can't speak to that.
With all the different areas that we work in, from the horticulture and foods and work, well, you name it, Extension has a program on it. Let's try to flood this 4-H camp program with as many people as we can to give these kids a broad experience to what Extension does, and you got a captive audience, and no better way than to get people interested is to show them what we do. Our Extension does. So,
are you referring to the Camp
Kenwood?
Camp Kenwood? Oh,
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So looking at looking at recruiting kids outside of 4-H for that event?
No,
or
I'm looking at having our experts, have an hour or two at camp to say, this is what I can teach you about X. And maybe could give them 4-H kids that camp different ideas for 4-H projects. Let's say, for example, if you're gonna arts and crafts, I don't know, or horticulture, or we got meetings coming up with foods and nutrition and preservation. I mean, I don't assume that we have to meet any type of reduced meals requirements to give our talk to 4-H kids at 4-H camp. Do we?
I didn't tell him to say that.
No, I know he did. I warned him that I was going to get after you guys.
Yeah, no, I mean.
And besides, if you hadn't been to Camp Kenwood, you ought to want to go.
Been there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And that falls right over you for Zach to consider and sway the staff to. But Margaret has done some 4-H events in other counties, not necessarily here yet, but I think we're establishing, with Zach being new, I think we're establishing some, and the 4-H team met yesterday. So the other thing we're doing is having the 4-H team with the ops teams, which is our support, work together to, create efficiencies across the area and to collaborate and offer, if Eau Claire is doing a project, can Dunn County kids come over and enjoying that too and so forth. So we're starting those conversations on let's work smarter, not harder, and see what opportunities we can give the kids and volunteers. I don't know, Zach, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just that, we have been collaborating a little bit. Margaret did Clovey for us, and I was just talking to Sandy today about getting some contacts from some people that she knows. So we have been working together, but you're right, we can always do a little bit more.
Right. And, I'll even hand out board jobs. Heidi in Eau Claire County is a fantastic educator. And if I was a kid going to 4-H camp and one of the educators brought some of their livestock, their goats, and showed me what a kid goat is and how do you milk a goat? And what does goat milk taste like? I mean, wouldn't you go home a little smarter than when you went to camp? That's just a couple of ideas.
Okay.
I'm an old camper. I love camp. And there's girls there. Oh, no. Yeah, right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Right. Okay.
I think Larry just volunteered himself to be a camp counselor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, training. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you want me to take the meeting back over? I apologize for being late. Planes, trains, and automobiles. It was everything conspiring against me today, so. Anything else from our area extension director?
I don't have anything else. No.
Okay. Did you move into any financial updates, or did you?
So just if there's questions on the financial sheets that were supplied, otherwise we don't really have an update on financials.
Okay. And written educator updates were included, and if anybody has any questions about those, I see we have a number of folks here, so you can ask away if you have anything else beyond what Larry decided to volunteer and ask and admonish. Otherwise, we will move on to our extension educator presentation from Margaret Murphy, talking about horticulture. Yay.
Thank you, Melissa, for bringing that up. Figure this out.
Sharing a PowerPoint on Zoom is always a challenge if you don't do it regularly.
Oh, yeah.
Good thing we have someone from IT here who could probably direct them to do that. You may just have to advance it like manually with the slides up, because it's a process to present while you have Zoom up. No, you'll have to just tell her. Next slide, please. If you aren't setting it right to do it, it won't present through Zoom. You have to tell it. You have to do some configuration and how you share. There, okay. You might be able to. How about that? Now just remember what you did
Yeah.
for next time.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me give my horticulture update. Just a brief overview. Again, Margaret Murphy, I'm the horticulture educator. I serve Chippewa, Dunn, and Eau Claire counties. And the majority of my work, or actually all of my work with horticulture when I do outreach and education, I'm always coming from the framework of environmentally sound best practices. And when it comes to our state plan of work, The Extension Horticulture Program, we focus on environmental challenges that are faced not only in Wisconsin, but throughout the nation and actually in some throughout the world. So we focus on pollinator decline, we're focusing on climate change and environmental pollution. And horticulture best practices can really go a long way as we teach these to individuals and groups, as we do education. It really does go a long way in helping to address some of these challenges. We also, and this is something that's going to be new in our plan of work for this year, is we are going to put in more of a focus or a support for programming that deals with health and wellness, that has to do from the positive impacts that plants have on our lives. So I wanted to talk just first about pollinators. Protecting pollinators has become an emerging issue, not only nationally, it's internationally as well. And so what we're doing here in Dunn County, and I'm working with Scott and facilities to, we're planning, and also Melissa is very much part of this as well. We're planning an educational garden that is going to be of native plants. And so the purpose of this native plants that we're going to be installing in the next several weeks here when they come in front of the building is both for beautification, but also as a way to demonstrate to the public that once these plants are established and they get a little bigger, for native pollinator plants or native perennial plants, it usually takes a good 2 to 3 years before they really come into their own. But once they are established, then you're looking at plantings that not only increase pollinator habitat, but they're going to require less watering and less maintenance overall. There will be some maintenance, there always is with a garden, but it reduces the need for fertilizers and pesticides and things like that. So we're very excited about installing this garden, and then we're going to also be putting up some educational material like plant markers and a sign talking about pollinator and pollinator gardening. Another thing we have, if you noticed in the courtyard here at the government building, we have all those circular planters out there. I think there's 7 of them. And the 4-H group is going to take one of them this year and plant. And hopefully I'll get a master gardener to plant one. We had master gardeners. They always did the shade one, the one in the shade. They always did a beautiful job. They can't do it again this year. So we'll hopefully find someone else. But I'm going to go with a general pollinator theme. But again, if the 4-Hers have their own plan, go with it. It's very loosey-goosey, just as long as they look good. And then hopefully we'll showcase some nectar and host plants for pollinators. And then during National Pollinator Week, which is the 3rd week in June, I hope to offer a program here, which we will go around and look at these gardens as well as what we've done in front of the building to kind of just showcase some of the work we're doing here. Other programs I'm working on right now, it's spring. People want programming on gardening, of course. So I've been doing a series for beginner gardeners, and that's basically focused on vegetable gardening. So working with people who are new to vegetable gardening, we're talking about the basics of vegetable gardening. We've talked about starting seeds indoors, and come a few weeks from in this month, we will be talking about vegetable gardening in containers for people who have limited space or limited time or limited mobility. That way, gardening can be still done by people who love to garden but may not have the space or time. I'm also doing some programming on strategies to grow successful patio gardens. Again, that has become very popular over the last few years, again, because people don't always have the time for a big garden. So it still allows people to get out and do some gardening, just even if it's just a few pots out in your backyard. And then I also been doing some programming on tips to encourage youth participation in gardening, which kind of dovetails into another program we have here at Dunn County, and that's the 6-week youth gardening program we do with River Heights Elementary. Actually, we do it with the Boys and Girls Club at River Heights Elementary in partnership with FoodWise. And this is our 2nd year, so it was very successful last year. They're very excited about us doing it again this year, and we work with 2nd and 4th graders. They have 6 raised beds outside their school. They've left it to me this year to do a garden plan, so I'm working on that. And then also, as I mentioned, we're doing more with health and wellness. And there is just a growing body of evidence that research-based evidence that supports how being around plants really does help people mentally, intellectually, emotionally, as well as physically when you're out gardening and things like that. So we've been doing some programming and some of the activities that I've been doing, and it's crazy how people are just really interested in this. I mean, I think it's great. I was at the UW Stolt Wellness Fair. We had some information on plants and how they impact our lives positively. Chippewa Strong just had an event that focused on resiliency, and they had reached out to me to see if I would have a table there to talk about how plants can benefit our mental well-being. And also, I'm working with ADRC in Eau Claire. We're doing a series of horticulture-based activities for people in the beginning stages of dementia and their caretakers. And so we're offering hands-on experience. We have our first class meeting on May 25th, I think, and ADRC has Meals on Wheels. They have a building there where they create the meals, and they have a bunch of raised beds outside the building. So we're going to plant those raised beds. That what is our first class is going to be. And then Meals on Wheels folks will take care of the gardens and also will utilize the produce for their meals. And then I've been invited to explore these positive impacts on plants and how to incorporate more plants in our lives, talk about that with other organizations this summer and fall. So it's obviously an area people are very interested in. So I'm very excited to be able to do some programming in that area. And then lastly, just again, a lot of what I do in the summer is just talk with people one-on-one with their horticulture questions. And I just was doing that before I came down here. And I'm getting a lot of questions on sustainable plantings. A lot of people are, I for the first time ever since working here, got a lot of questions so far on people wanting to convert their lawns to become more pollinator friendly. So putting together some information for folks on that, which is very exciting. People are already asking me fruit questions based on what they saw last year and how to prevent their issues this year. Emerald ash borer, of course, is always something people are interested in learning more about. Soil testing, as soon as the snow melted, those questions started coming in, and wildlife. Because again, as soon as the snow melted, you could see all the vole tracks in your lawn. So people were calling about that as well. And then just basic tree questions. That's probably our biggest topic in most counties, in all the counties I serve. And you can see I got a number of questions on trees that had been girdled by rabbits. And again, some of these folks did protect their trees, but we had so much snow, the bunnies just crawled up a little higher and girdled trees. So a number of people have lost their apple trees. One person lost their little ginkgo tree to little rabbits. And then I can't really see it behind there, but that black thing that's affectionately called turd on a stick, that is black knot. And that's another fungal disease we see on plum and cherry trees often. And so I had questions about that as well. So lots of fun questions coming in already. And that's about all that's going on right now. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you.
One question I had about the perennial plantings that you're doing with around the building here. Are you having to compensate for climate change at all with what you are deciding? Because it's like you're kind of looking ahead, and you're trying to do something that's going to be more sustainable and going to last. Is that having to kind of enter into your equation when you're deciding which plants that are going to be planted?
Definitely. One thing we looked at, or I looked at when I was putting together a plant list, is plants that are native to the area and well adapted to the area. And a lot of your native perennials, once they're established, they put down some really healthy roots. So they are much better at dealing with times of drought, lower water, and things like that. So when you read about climate change and gardening, they really are encouraging people to look at natives that are already well adapted for the area and can manage too in soils that aren't necessarily super fertile. So they, in some cases, some of these native prairie plants prefer soils that aren't really tended that well. We also, one thing I looked at too is I wanted to, just because of where it's going to be situated, I was looking for plants that weren't going to be super aggressive, because some of these prairie plants can spread quite a bit and they can be quite aggressive. So I was looking for plants that are more bunch or won't spread as quickly, so we can keep on top of them. Again, well adapted. And again, with native perennials, and this is true for any perennial really, is they don't, like annuals, they're designed to bloom throughout the season for the most part. But perennials, you have a bloom season. So I have chosen plants that we hopefully will have blooms in the spring, and then we'll have others coming in the summer, and then others coming in the fall. So you won't necessarily have everything in bloom at the same time. You won't. The nice thing about the flexibility of working with facilities is that if we find that we have some holes and we want to fill in during times when we don't have a lot in bloom, we always have the option of putting in some non-natives or even some annuals kind of thing. But we really wanted to stick to as many natives as we could for that very reason, is that they're just going to be better suited. And you know, that soil up there, we haven't tested it yet, but again, most of the plants that I chose should do okay. So we'll see how it rolls. But yeah, definitely looking ahead for how things are going to be changing in the unfortunately not even the not so distant future.
Anybody else have any questions for Margaret? Supervisor Bjork?
I just would like to inform the chair that climate change in Wisconsin right now
Mhm.
is that farmers are 10 days to 2 weeks late with cold, wet soils. So if climate change is coming, it's nice to have a little bit this year.
Yeah.
Really frustrating. Guys are out there wanting to go big investments, and it's either too wet and too cold.
It's been a weird spring.
Very weird. So a little editorial on my part.
Yes.
So I was wondering, are these webinars recorded? So are they all on like the UW Extension calendar? Is that how?
The programs I'm doing, no, they're not webinars. What I've been doing, the vegetable gardening and gardening with kids and things like that have all been in person. So we haven't recorded them, but our extension horticulture program does have free webinars that they offer throughout the season on a wide variety of horticulture topics. And they're done over lunch. And so they're usually kept to about 30 minutes, including the question and answers. Some of them, they do extend to about 45 minutes. But if you go to our horticulture extension website and go under upcoming programs, under webinars for Wisconsin gardeners, you will find a whole list of upcoming webinars. Plus, they've archived the ones we did last year, so they're all recorded. Those are all recorded, and you can go access the recording at any time. So those have been really successful and really popular. And again, they've covered so many different topics that there's probably quite a few things that you might find interesting there. But yeah.
And so I just had a curiosity question. Are there a few pollinators that people could plant that don't take a lot of care or a lot of
Yeah,
maintenance?
and you know, you don't even have to, depending on where you're planting, if you can't put in a perennial garden, really in all my vegetable gardens, I always include zinnias, because zinnias attract butterflies like crazy, and they are pretty much reduced maintenance. You plant them and they just take care of themselves. And actually they grow very well, even for someone like me. And I wish this wasn't recorded. Don't quote me on this, but I do neglect my gardens from time to time. So they don't get the water they need, and zinnias do well. You can also put in sunflowers, because they don't come in until the end of the season or to late summer, but they will attract a lot of bees. So those are pretty easy to do flowers that you can seed right into the garden, and that will attract pollinators. Yeah.
Anything else for Margaret? Any morel reports yet in the county? Oh, okay. Haven't seen anything around my place, but usually get about 30 of them that grow in my yard. So, but we haven't seen anything. So. All right. So with that, we're going to move on. And next on the agenda, we have economic development. And I think we actually have that's nice. You can either grab a seat or you can go up to the podium. Yeah, that'd be great. For those who don't know, Bob Bassani, he is the Director of the Economic Development, Dunn County Economic Development Corporation. Push that little, yeah, there you go.
We good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, what I'm doing, I'm actually pleased to be here. It's the first time I've been here and maybe a long time, maybe ever, I don't remember. Hasn't been entirely my fault, but some of it was. But anyway, just to let you know, I'm going to go through a list of some things here, and none of these are in any particular order of importance necessarily. But I'll just give you a flavor for some of the things that we're involved in and some of the things that we do, among other things. And some of this is self-serving. I'll have to be honest with you. We're on a major fundraising campaign right now, and on a private fundraising campaign. And I'll have to tell you, and I will be tell you that I'm extremely grateful to Chris for all the help that she's given me through the county to take some of that work off my back. Really help. But we've probably put out even with the most recent batch, over 200, I'll call them requests for support. Okay. And we're having a fair amount of success in that regard. So that's good. And we've got some goals, and I think that that we're going to achieve them. So anyway, that was a lot of work in that. I'm doing a lot of work in the housing arena right now. And I've been working with a couple of developers, but one in particular, in fact, as late as this morning, was working with them on some stuff. And this is a major developer who is got residential and multifamily units all over the state. They have a strong interest in coming up here and exploring the opportunities and the needs that are up here. So I've been working with them in terms of providing information and giving them some options that they're exploring. They will look at even repurposing buildings. And so right now I've got them looking at the Marshfield building in Elk Mound, and I'd sent them a bunch of information on that. But beyond that, I've also connected with them with some major players in the community. In particular, I'll call them executives or major players with major industries, because they're very interested in what their sense are. And they've talked to one to whom I connected them just this past week. And he told them that that his biggest need, he says, is to find housing for the employees he'd like to hire. And that's the type of thing they want to hear, along with a lot of the data that's coming out of the Regional Business Fund housing study that had been done. And that's coming up here pretty quick, I think in May, and we'll get that in. But anyway, the bottom line is that we've been doing a lot of work in that arena. And so, I work closely with the Greater Menominee Development Corporation. And among the things that I do, and in fact, earlier this year, I put a plan together, and as it turned out, it didn't work, but I put the capital lease structures together for projects. And I've got an opportunity here coming up, I think, to do that again. And it would be really good if we could secure a project here and get the GMDC involved in a capitalized lease structure. Okay, did it for the GMDC when I was with them when I was with the EDC years ago. That's how Big Dot got here, the Center for Independent Living. There were others. And so we're going to do that again. In any case, that's out there. We also work with the GMDC. We list through our website, the Dunn County Economic Development website, their virtual properties on an agency called CoStar. And CoStar is the largest internet real estate firm in the country. Now, we list it for the GMDC, and they've got another virtual property they want to put up. So we do that, and we manage that for them. So I got to get it done. I mean, but they're ready to go. Working with a developer on a 15,000 square foot building in Boyceville. Working with him, I had worked with him on finding a site that worked. I think it either is or is in the process of securing that site. That's going to happen. And I believe we'll probably see some movement on that within the next month. My last conversation with him, he'll be ready to move. Additionally, I'll get him involved with the Regional Business Fund in terms of financing. And they can provide 40% financing for the right projects, 4% income, fixed rate, 15%. It works out perfect for him. So we're going to get him lined up to do that. Gosh, I don't know. I'm working with another company called Command Air. Came up from Kentucky last fall. Currently, they're working at a small space in Boyceville. They manufacture parts for ultralights. Okay. And that's kind of neat. But in any case, I'm working with them to find them some space, have some options. And also we'll look at securing their financing, including through the Regional Business Fund, to get some gap financing for them. Working with I'll call it, I don't know if it's going to right term, a tailor or a sewing company. Okay. And these guys, they bring a fair amount of muscle to the plate. I'm willing to work with these guys to a large degree. And they want to put up a shop, and it's more than just a tailor shop, but they contract with clothing manufacturers to do sewing. And you guys, some of you, well, probably none of you are old enough here to remember. What was the name of that sewing company years ago? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, but in any case, I'm working with these guys, and I have to tell you, one of the things, and it's a group of guys who want to start this business. They would expect to have within the first year 30 employees. So it's a big deal. It's a worthwhile deal. But they need a lot of help in putting the package together. So I'm working with them in particular in terms of putting a financing package together. And so anyway, I've given them instructions to get me information. I said, I'm working blind right now, guys. I need this, this, and this. So they promised to get that to me. I'm working with another company called JD Outsource Partners. They leased space here earlier this year at the Harmony Center, with space vacated by Big Dot. And they're a packaging order fulfillment company. Met with them, in fact, again this morning. I'm working really hard with them. We had worked to get some gap financing for them, and we managed to do that. Now I'm really working really hard with these guys to get out and get some takeout financing. And when I work with these guys, I will work with them as long as they do what I tell them. All right. I don't want to waste any more time than I already waste. And these guys have been there. All right. So they're developing the things that they need. And I'll probably be meeting with lenders again on their behalf, probably next week. And there's at least 2 of them on the table. So my hope is that we can get that takeout package in there, and you guys can continue to get financed. And another thing that we got to do, I got a letter from a notice from QuickBooks a couple of weeks ago that, and we use QuickBooks. In fact, it's QuickBooks Desktop Pro 2020. That's the system we use. Got a damn letter. It says they're discontinuing it. Okay. Got to switch to QuickBooks Online. That doesn't sound like a big deal. It's a royal pain in the butt, because but we're in the process, and we'll get that done. I'm also working with a countertop manufacturer. And I think I'm working with these guys, and I think I've found them some space that will work for them. I needed 5,000 square feet of space, certain dimensions and certain other, but I've got some space that will work. So I've got some other options that they wanted to look at, but boy, I tell you what, space is hard to come by, guys. It has been hard to come by for the last 2 years. All right. I'm working with a guy he's actually out of La Crosse. His name is Brian Semling. He had bought and he owns that 10,000 square foot building in Knapp. And so I've been trying to get the right people into that building. I've had a couple of options out there, but we're working on that. So that's still out there. Just so you guys know, Tanglewood is under construction. I want you guys to know I worked almost 2 years hard to get that project done. That was a tough nut to crack, but we got it done. Worked with a developer who closed on it, and I was out there a couple of weeks ago. It's under construction now. The original plan was to have the first 9 open by June, okay, and the second 9 open by the fall. But you mentioned, or was it you mentioned that the late spring?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kicked them right in the butt. Okay. So I'd like to think though that at least the first 9 will, certainly the driving range, the event center is going to be ready. They're going to have concerts out there. They're going to have a whole variety of things. Restaurants under remodel, are going to be remodeled. And I'd like to think that they can get the first 9 done yet this year. Okay, I'd like to, they're not, there's no way, no way on God's green earth they're going to get all 18 done this year. It's not going to happen. But at the first 9 would really help. But anyway, that's in process. And that's a big thing. We are going to have an 18-hole golf course here in town. And gosh, I don't know. I've got other projects. And one of the things you learn in this job, and you guys could well imagine that, but you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. You know, you never who's going to call you. And what I will do with what I consider to be credible projects is that I will work with them. And to be honest with you, and it sounds self-serving again, but I'll work with these guys deeper than anybody else I know, at least in this position. All right. I will help them put their financing packages together. You know, 90% of the people that come to me have a common thread, and that is they need financing. And they have no earthly idea how to structure it. I will work with them to do that. So anyway, we've got a few other things, but that's good for now. Any questions? Any comments at all, guys?
Any questions for Bob and anybody? Supervisor Bjork?
Bob, what's happening across the street there with Schneider Avenue or whatever it is called, being extended up the hill where the city's putting in a road, sewer and water? Or is that looking at economic development in the area?
If it is, I haven't caught up with it yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't come
I
to
mean,
me.
I keep asking people and
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
You know,
one told me that they were gonna go around the top of the hill and then intersect with the road coming up from the airport and the Jiu-Jitsu Center,
yeah,
and possibly have a set of streetlights out there. So I mean, you know, when you look at least area for economic development, you know, with the infrastructure there with the sewer and water, that'd be a great opportunity, I would think, for somebody. I mean,
yeah, there is. And I will say, by the way, too, and here's the other thing, you guys, just so you know this, and I've got to work with Cedar Corporation to get something done here. But I get requests, and within the last week, I had 3 of them. All right. And these are from major, and it comes to me through Momentum West. All right. But these are major companies looking for major project development. We're talking 200,000 square foot facilities, you know, 500 jobs, that type of thing. And invariably, I maybe only get 2 or 3 or 4 days at most to complete an RFP. In the last week, I got 3 of them. I was only able to complete 1. The other 2, I just had pass. I don't have the horsepower to handle it. I just don't. So what I'm going to try to do, and I know that the GMDC has engaged with Cedar Corporation to do some things. I am going to try to get Cedar Corporation, which has that information at their fingertips anyway. I mean, I don't know what the hell the damn flow rates are over there at Site B in the industrial park. I mean, I don't have that information. You know, I'd have to, and I don't have the time to go get all that stuff. But I'm going to try to get that. It bothers me to pass up some of those opportunities. It truly bothers me. But there's only so much I can do, you know. And when you only typically get 3 or 4 days to fill out a big, huge RFP, sometimes you just have to back off. You know, I just won't get it done. And of course, I never get an opportunity to extend it. You know, got to have it in by Wednesday. In this case, it was last Wednesday. You don't have it in by Wednesday, you're off. Now, I'll also be honest with you. The chances are 1 in whatever. They're extremely small. But
I know with RFPs, it's like you have to make a judgment call. It's like the amount of time it's going to take to fill it out when your chances of possibly getting it, and especially if you have multiple ones to do it once, you have to kind of weigh which one's going to be a better use of time.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I had a whole call within 2 days. I had 3 RFPs. I can't get them all. So you're exactly, that's what I did. I assessed which one we had the greatest opportunity for. You know, it still bothers me. I couldn't get anything out for the other two, even though the chance was 1 in 1,000. Because it's 1 and 0, it's 0 unless we're we get
Yeah.
on the table, you know, but anyway, those still come, okay? Those still come.
Any
Yeah.
other questions for Bob? Request for proposal.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, it's a multiple pages and you have to fill out all this stuff and it takes a long time. I rarely, a lot of times, don't even bother submitting something for that because there's so many hoops that you have to go through. And he's right. If you have like 2-3 days to do 3 of them, you can't get them all done. So.
Yeah, so thanks for recognizing that, but
Mhm.
that's tough, you know. Still bothers me, but like you said, there's only so much you can do. You know?
Yep. Supervisor Vogel.
So Bob is, I believe, working on the budget for next year, the request from the committee. Do we have any thoughts on what's needed in his request as he's filling that out?
I don't know if anything yet, but that's a good thing to kind of be thinking about if we have anything additionally. And I think that some of this kind of meeting of the minds about economic development, when that comes together, that's going to kind of help determine some direction that we're going to go. So that could provide us a lot of food for thought for that. Anything else for Bob?
I have a couple of things to add, if that's okay.
Yes, that's why I was going to bring you in if there was more
right.
to add. So
I think that Supervisor Vogel is involved with this as well with the Dunn County EDC board. But the board has been working, so they did some goal planning at the beginning of the year and have been plucking away at tackling those goals, have revisited mission and vision, are working through the bylaws, have reworked the job description for the executive director. So that stuff is all well in the works. Fundraising, as Bob indicated, that they've tackled. And then we do now have dates for the Economic Development Summit, which will be on May 18th and May 22nd or June 22nd. So the things that have been set up, some of the things that were identified early on in the year are happening.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. I really should have brought that up, but thank you for bringing that up.
are those dates again?
May 18th and June 22nd.
Where is that going to be?
Here.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for economic development? If not, we'll move on. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You bet.
And we'll move on to communication. So Chris, you have the floor again.
Okay, I'm just passing around the summary, but I've invited Krista Vind, our web specialist and video content creator and social media extraordinaire and all of the things that she does for us. I've invited her to come and share a little bit of data about our reach in social media. I think some of it's pretty interesting. So
yeah, I think they're gonna pull it up for you. I can start talking a little bit about it. So I pulled some numbers from January 1st of this year to yesterday, and our Facebook reach was 97,717. And reach is the number of people who saw any content from our page. And that can include posts, stories, ads, but we don't do stories typically, and we don't pay for ads. Everything we do is organic. So everything we do is unpaid, no ads. It's just people sharing information with each other. And so in our Instagram reach was 737. Instagram is a little weak. we post there. We don't get a lot of action on there from people interacting with our Instagram very much. People who visited our page since January was 11,502. The new likes, we've gotten 231 new likes on our Facebook since then. If you want to go down into the current audience. So this is kind of fun to look at. So we currently have over 6,000 people on our Facebook page that follow our page. And if you look, most of them are women between the ages of 35 and mid-40s is most of the people who follow us. And obviously the top cities are Menominee and other local areas, you know, Colfax, Elkmont. People from Dunn County and the community really do follow our page. And people from Eau Claire too do follow our page. And if you scroll down a little more, it just shows the countries. Obviously, the United States is our top country. If you go down to benchmarking, this is pretty interesting. So this tells us, this goes over the last 28 days. And this tells us in the last 28 days, we published more posts and stories compared to other businesses in our category. So we're government agencies. And it breaks it down to like 6.7 thousand posts shared. And compared to that, compared to other businesses, we're above the 75th percentile for that, for the post or the published content. For Facebook followers, we're between 50 and 75th percentile. Content interactions, 50 and 75th. So we're doing really well on Facebook. Instagram, not as well. A lot of it 25th percentile for new Instagram followers and content interactions. They use the same published content. Well, not quite as much, but we're in the 50 to 75th for that. And then if you want to scroll down more. So this talks about the post reach was 73.7 thousand. That's up 2.6. This is in the last 90 days. So we're up 2.6% from the 90 days before. And this is from defined accounts. And so a defined or account center. So a defined account center is an individual Facebook page, or let's say we have an account center that holds our Instagram and our Facebook. So that counts as one account center. So if both of them look at it, it's still just one look at the post, you know, it reaches that post. Engagement 6,000. And if you go down, some of our top posts were shown. The highest commented one was one from this winter about a winter storm warning. And then it shows some of the highest reach and the highest likes and reactions. So those numbers are pretty interesting to look at. And that is pretty much it for the Facebook metrics. If you have any questions.
How's that compared to like what the Dunn County's website is getting? Is that getting same level of traffic about?
Still gets a lot of traffic, and I can run those. I can run all of these metrics for YouTube and Facebook and our website for the next meeting if you want to see all of those.
It'd
But
be nice, it'd be interesting just
Yeah.
to see the comparison. Have you noticed with, you know, implementing the new communications strategy, has traffic generally been going up over the last couple months through the different platforms?
I guess, you know, I think it's gone up a little bit so far. I think we're getting a lot more interaction with some of our posts on Facebook. A lot of positive comments and
Positive comments are good.
yes. People seem to really like a lot of the things we share. And if we're, you know, really transparent about the content we share, they really appreciate that as well.
That's good.
Yep.
Anybody have comments for Krista on her update? Thank you. How's that tripod working out?
It's wonderful.
Okay.
It's so nice.
And so, Chris, additional,
So we continue working with Doug Mel. We continue to do the social or the county manager's social media promotion for the upcoming board meeting. Krista's continuing to work on content for her Learning About County Government series, and you are currently working on budget and something else.
Budget and one committee and oh, usually behind the scenes, I forget about this. A budget video, an admin committee video, a highway video. And yeah, so that's what we're currently working on.
Dan has been working with Qualtrics, our new surveying other accoutrements tool. And yep, at the April Committee on Administration meeting, they approved $5,000 of communication fund from the contingency fund for us. So we're gonna add another Qualtrics licensee with that money and some of the odds and ends things that Krista's needed, like a tripod, but also it'll allow us to actually pay for some boosts in social media, which extends our reach as well and is not as a nominal cost, but gets you a lot more bang for your, gets you a lot more push for your information and perhaps bang for your buck. So yeah, so that's all in the works. And then we are working on either things are either out or are in the works. CJCC had its 15th anniversary. County Road B project that's slated for this summer north of the interstate. Dan his broadband survey stuff that he's been working with on the broadband work group. We have an honor flight person who's going to be have an honor flight from that is at NDC. The Heritage Hall renovation, so there's a resolution coming to the legislative and executive committee, ultimately to the board next week. And if that is passed, then we'll push that out in a press release for the renovation of Heritage Hall. We've taken interest, or I've taken interest, I guess, in that because it is the building that houses hospitality, and what's the other part of that? Yeah, but there's hospitality and something else that too. Tourism and hospitality. But yes, but it has the council, all of the counseling programs. We know with, like, for instance, Governor Evers declaring this the year of mental health, a huge gap in that plan are providers. So they do the preparation for providers in the mental health world, in childcare and in education. And those are all areas that sort of hands-on touch the county. So advocating for their funding for that, some youth justice changes, and then passenger rail. So Doug's working on all of those things.
fabulous. Any questions for Chris about communications for the county? No, thank you. We're going to move on to broadband, and the broadband task force has been meeting weekly on Thursdays. It's an open meeting. You're welcome to attend. Usually Dan is sitting here by himself and you see this huge thing and just one person sitting up there on the screen. So looks a little sad, but we're happy because there's exciting news about the broadband survey. Can you kind of tell us how that's been implemented and where we're at?
Yeah, so the committee, as Jim mentioned, has been meeting a lot, and the first step was kind of building a vision and starting to work down some goals, but simultaneously we were working on kind of developing a survey, because one of the biggest mysteries out there as it relates to broadband is who doesn't have it. And so we know the areas that have been covered by grants, and we kind of know where, if you live in the city of Menominee, you probably have broadband. Outside of areas covered by grants in the cities and the villages in the county, we don't know. We know that a provider, we have maps that say the providers cover that, but we know that that map is not accurate. So part of our part of the process here is to go out and survey and to identify where that is lacking. So group met, talked about different questions that we wanted to ask in a survey and what was important to us as we were kind of putting that out. And I think ultimately the important part is get responses. So the survey is quite simple. And we have two different forms of survey. So one is an online form, though we also know that it does not necessarily make logical sense to ask people without internet to fill out an online form. So we have a mailed version. So there's an envelope here if you want to take a look at that. Those were mailed out yesterday. They should start arriving in mailboxes today. So it is an envelope with a 3-question survey. It is already addressed and postage is paid. So all you need to do is check a few boxes and put it back in the mailbox. It's got the return address on it, so we know where we sent it, and we can kind of locate that back in order to build a map of where we're getting these responses back. So that was rolled out. Our social media started promoting some of the online survey. Don't leave without a flyer. And just yesterday, so the plan was to roll out the survey next week. But last week, the Governor's Broadband Task Force announced statewide listening sessions, of which the very first one was in Menominee yesterday. So we quickly grabbed to try and get our surveys done and out so that we had the online one available for the listening session that occurred yesterday. So had that ready. I was there and had the survey up and available for anybody who wanted to take it. So the survey is out, it's live. We've shared that out amongst our membership, and Chris emailed all of the municipal chairs in Dunn County to get that out to there and the clerks. So we're just as much as we can trying to get this out, get it in people's hands, and have them fill that out, and looking forward to getting 5,000 postcards back. I'm really not looking forward to 5,000
Well,
postcards.
yeah, because the last time that I'm trying to remember when Addison did his survey, how long ago was that?
It was in 2017, and I believe he said he had a 30% response rate.
Yeah, it was huge
So-
for a survey. That's a giant response rate, because if you're at 7 to 10%, usually you consider that pretty good. And that meant that people were pretty interested. So, and then with the postcards that did get sent out, you didn't cover the whole county. It was, you kind of selected those areas that you thought might be either in that donut area or wherever.
Yeah. So we worked through, did a lot of work. There is, I guess the other thing I didn't mention is we did update the Dunn County broadband webpage. So it's go.dunn.wi.us/broadband. And there's a map out there that actually shows where in Dunn County grants have been awarded. And where they have been applied for. So we do have 2 pending grants in Dunn County right now, in this current grant process, which is, I believe, supposed to be announced like in the next week or so. And it's this with the PSC people yesterday. It's the leftover grant. So after the first round, there was some leftovers, and they kind of re-award that. So there's not a lot of money available, but a couple of big grants in Dunn County that could be helpful. So what we did to send out those surveys is we took the people that we knew had already been awarded, and we did not mail them a survey. We also excluded the municipalities, so the cities and villages in Dunn County. We know if you live kind of inside of those bounds, you are likely covered by broadband. It's outside of those. So, and that was 5,100 some addresses is in the end.
So if you get a chance, you can share the link to the survey in with your peeps and networks and get it out there.
Right. And we have PDF versions of this flyer if you want to send those out, and we have grant funding to print them. So anything you want, if you can think of a way to market and to get the word out, we're happy to help and listen.
That was my comment, was to close the gap about how we were paying for all of this.
Yes.
Yes, there is actually a grant that's covering this stuff. So,
Yep.
which unlike last time when it was all just kind of on the county shoulders to do the survey and come up with stuff. And that also meant that, I think it was frustrating for a lot of residents because they'd say, yeah, I don't have it. What are you doing about it? And the county wasn't doing anything. And now we can actually say, hey, we're doing something. We're trying to, address those areas that don't have it. And, something that, we're trying to find out some other things too. It's, and some questions about, why people don't have internet, and is it because they don't have access? Do they choose not to have internet because they don't know the benefit? And so some of the stuff the task force is going to consider going into the future is, why do people either don't have it because there is no high speed, they don't know the value of it, don't know the benefit, don't want to pay for it, can't afford it. All those variables enter into it.
And I would echo that, as I was at the governor's broadband task force listening session yesterday, same questions happening at that level.
Is that right?
It was like a task force meeting all over again. So
Was it just you in the room and just a big empty table, or
they put me on one side of the room and had
good,
me
good.
sit by myself?
Well, then you felt at home.
So,
I just wanted to say that I so appreciate the leadership that Dunn has taken on to pull all of this off, and similarly with Krista and all the help she gives us on the communication side. But there's all that residual benefit of it is positive. I am so proud of the work that Dunn County does every single day in all of the areas that we touch. And it's great when there's sort of the residual piece of reaching out about broadband or communicating or whatever, or that people are saying, hey, like, we're glad somebody's doing something about these things. And so it's nice to be on the receiving side in government of, we're glad you're trying to help. It's not always like that, but versus, you all suck and are stealing our money. So.
Well, and it's true, because I just read something, I was almost going to share it with everybody, because it was a county that has just devolved into dysfunction and backbiting and fighting, and a lot of it's because of totally because of miscommunication and assumptions made before folks got on the county board. So it's been interesting. We're just a breath of fresh air sometimes. Any other questions from any of the supervisors for Dan or Chris about broadband and what's going on? And again, the task force is an open meeting. It's every Thursday for a while here at 1:30.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. I should know this because it's permanently on my calendar right here. So or you can join it on Zoom. No, I guess we'll move on. Next agenda item. I'm keeping Dunn County tourism on the agenda, even if we don't have anything to necessarily discuss, just so it's like a regular agenda item, since our committee is Dunn County is the CRNT, and the tourism is part of the T. I don't know if there's anybody has any questions about tourism, or has any comments, or has seen anything that's going on tourism related in the county that they want to bring up. If not, then we'll just move on, and there's not much else because there's no consideration of actions to be taken by this committee. Our next committee meeting, though, will be Tuesday, June 13th at the same time, same room right here. And if there's no other comments or announcements, Mr. Bjork, do you have a?
Well, yes, Mr.
Announcement.
Chairman, I do have a very important announcement.
Okay, what is it?
Well, one is a piece of advice for the gentleman in the room. And don't ever tell your spouse that, well, I know it's Mother's Day, but you're not my mother. So don't do that. And then for everybody else who are mothers, happy Mother's Day.
I don't think I would have ever done that, but have you, is this from past experience?
I've had a lot of years of past experience. Yes.
Good advice. With that, our meeting is adjourned.